Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, fans of the OBR and the OBR streaming network. My name is Joe Mazzullo. This is Pete Smith. And welcome to this week's edition of Pete and Joe. We got the combine kicking off this week. We got tons of stuff going on. Pete Smith, how are you, my good sir?
Good. Stuff's going on. That's always good. The combine is going. We're getting closer to actually being able to do things.
Yeah, no, agreed completely. So we had some stuff happen today. We had a lot of general managers speak today, all 32, I believe, and we got coaches tomorrow. Andrew Berry spoke at length today. He did his combine presser, and then he did a little sidebar interview with a lot of the local Cleveland media. Pete, look, this combine stuff, everybody is chomping at the bit to get information out of these guys. But I mean, can you take anything that comes out of the words of the mouths of these general managers this time of year? Is there anything to take away from these combines that you are hearing from NFL front office people?
I don't think Andrew Berry is dishonest in what he says. I think it's true. It's just true through his vision of things. So, like, I think people can sometimes take the wrong message from what he's saying, but he's pretty good about like telling you exactly what they want to do and their process, and then people sort of get worked up and decide that it doesn't match what they want to do or whatever. But like he's pretty a straight shooter, even if he's not going to tell you exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, my point behind that, Pete, is just almost how broad and vague most of these comments are. You know, it's like very, very little behind the curtain stuff. You know, they're not going to tell you what they're thinking about players individually. It's every player is going to compete, going to have an opportunity, you know, with guys like Posick and Emerson. You know, I mean, they're both going through Achilles injuries. They're both rehabbing. Neither one appears likely to come back. But, you know, that's an Andrew Berry thing. Like, a good communication with both. We'll see, that sort of thing. I mean, just non-committal, you know, nothing earth-shattering, nothing that's going to really show you the blueprint that these teams want to lay out. All right, well, let's talk about some of the other stuff we heard. So we heard from Eric DeCosta today, who I want to say they're not likely to tag Tyler Linderbaum, but they plan on making him, you know, a market resetting offer. So, I mean, that could be, I mean, we talk about all the time with the Browns and their messaging. That could be messaging, hey, we want to bring him back. We want to pay him well, but we might not be willing to use the franchise tag or, you know, meet his certain contract requirements. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, they can't tag him. I mean, that's the problem. And if you're Tyler Linderbaum, even if they're going to give you a great offer, every incentive says for you to go to the open market and see what happens, because you could still take it unless the Ravens are literally threatening to take it off the table, which I don't think they're going to do. So if you're Linderbaum, you just cruise into the tampering period and see what's out there. You know you're going to be the top center on the market. You know there's a ton of teams willing to pay money, including at least one that has former coaches that you just worked with. So he could theoretically end up back with the Ravens, but he might as well see what's out there. The only scenario that would change that is if they somehow can get that Lamar Jackson extension done real fast.
I was just going to ask about that. That's pretty much the key to it, isn't it?
Yeah, like, because if they don't do that, then what's the, you know, then there's a real question about what the point is of extending Linderbaum. So, you know, they can't, it would kill them to franchise him. So they can't do it. So, you know, for his standpoint, get to the market, even if you really want to go back to the Ravens. And I don't know where he's at on that, but all the incentives work for him to test the market and see what that is, even if it just means the Ravens pay a little bit more in the end.
Yeah. All right, some other stuff and some pertinent Brown stuff, at least, I mean, pertinent in the sense of quarterback discussion that's always going on around here. So the Falcons at the start of the new league year are going to cut Kirk Cousins, so he's going to be a free agent. Nick Caserio of the Houston Texans said absolutely not on any C.J. Stroud trade, which I think we all kind of knew, but there was that weird buzz just like for no reason growing that they're going to move off him. I mean, look, Houston's close enough that moving off of Stroud at this point would set the entire operation back. Like, if he's not the guy, then they're obviously screwed, but there's no pivoting at this point in the process away from Stroud to, you know, continue whatever aspirations that franchise has. You know, typical stuff. Howie Roseman loves AJ Brown, but we all know AJ Brown's on the top and block. But let's shuffle back to Andrew Berry here. he said some interesting things, Pete, right? So he talked about, as we have mentioned in the chat here, he talked about free agency this year being more aggressive. And I believe he said targeted and opportunistic were his words.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be more aggressive than last year. Last year, they brought in 11 free agents before the draft. But he dropped a little nugget about 2027. And he said that that's the year that we really dive in. And that's intriguing to me.
Well, let's start here. The being targeted and opportunistic is exactly what he should be. They are not in a position to throw a ton of money and be like, what is free agency for? If you're a big spender, you're either getting linchpin pieces, which if you could get a Tyler Linderbaum, he would be, or finishing pieces. Other than that, you are filling out the rest of your roster, which should be targeted and opportunistic. Yeah. So I don't want him to go and throw a ton of money around. I don't want him to go after, pay the Dan Moore type contract to Rasheed Walker. That's like my nightmare. Or Calvin Ridley type contract. That is what bad teams do. Titans, enjoy. So like target and opportunistic is exactly right. So I don't think it changes anything. They have to be aggressive relative to what they're trying to do. They need to build an offensive line that can be ready to go in March so that they can draft for it in April. They need to fill in the rest of the roster holes. They need to try to find a quarterback somewhere. But beyond that, like, what is out there? And two, what are you really expecting them to accomplish? So I think he's right on. I think what he's talking about is like when you say hyper aggressive, that's saying trying to now, whether you've got, you're in a situation like you've got a rookie quarterback on a contract and you feel really good about him, and now you're trying to spend around him and all those things. The Browns aren't there. So what would they be adding a ton of spending to do for other than to sort of make what I would argue is a bad set of decisions, because they're chasing wins when they shouldn't chase wins. They should be making sound choices, limited risk opportunities, and see if they can't sort of cobble together enough stuff so that the draft picks, ultimately the guys that really need to hit, are in a position to do so.
What did you make of when he talked about, whereas in the past they would do the 1-year prove it deals and get kind of veteran stopgaps for certain spots, he insinuated rolling with youth and letting the younger guys that we have on the roster compete for certain positions and maybe play their way into a position long term or into knowing that we need to upgrade that position. I thought that was a little interesting, because
I think it's exactly what they should do. It's either tier 2, tier 3 free agents, or guys that might be talented but have injury concerns that you're sort of like trying to get on the cheap and see if they can't give you something. Like if you were to sign a Braxton Jones to play left tackle, but then you go out and get a tackle at 39 in April, you hope the guy at 39 is going to be good enough to sort of beat that guy out. Yeah. But the bottom line is you have 2 guys that can theoretically man that position, which is what you want. So obviously DeJuan Jones could factor into that conversation as well. And he's sort of in that same mold of injury guy who has shown some flashes, but you can't really trust him. But that could be your process across the line to avoid making the big spend that you don't feel good about, to avoid making the Rasheed Walker type deal. So if you can get a couple of those guys, like Elijah Vera Tucker is a guy that makes a ton of sense to me in that scenario. Very talented, but has gotten hurt. So if you can get and then the other part about that is if you sign a guy like Elijah Vera Tucker and he's really good for you for a year and then hits the market again, and the Chargers sign him for a nice lucrative contract, and you're not as active in free agents, then you get some compensatory value as well. So that's sort of the mindset. Now there are going to be people who sit there and go, all we've done is dealt with offensive line injuries. I really don't want to do that, but they have to sort of figure out the best path forward while being conscious of not just throwing a bunch of money at the line. And then, because the whole problem we run into, in addition to the fact they got old, is you were spending a premium dollars on average talent at this point.
Yeah, agreed. And that was pretty much across the line. You had left guard, and right tackle that were all clearing 15 mil a season easy. And towards the end of it, there was closer to 20. And for inconsistent play and more importantly, inconsistent attendance in the starting lineup.
Yep.
You can't do it. You can't have it. So no hurry for the Browns to name a starter at quarterback. That is nothing new, nothing that surprises us. He's pretty non-committal. Said Shedeur and Deshaun and Dylan will all compete for the starting position. They're going to look outside. He had an interesting answer when they talked about an outside veteran, and he just kind of smirked and he said TBD. Now, that one's going to be fun to play with. Because obviously, everybody goes to Malik Willis, right? Because he's the one that is potentially going to be priced out of whatever ballpark the Browns are supposedly in, and he's the one that you talk to certain and wants to do, and all that sort of stuff. Do you have a different idea? Outside of your own bias and Geno Smith.
That's the correct answer. But my argument is that there are a number of those guys that can at least raise your floor, and give you something credible to compete against Shedeur Sanders. Which is all you really have to do. My issue is you just can't. You're unserious if you're telling me you're going to go into the season with Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders competing for the starting job. You're Todd Monken has waited his whole life for this opportunity, and you're telling me that's what they're going to do? Get out of here. So there are guys out there, and if Malik Willis goes to a couple places, that may open up some additional opportunities. But I don't think that this is another thing where they can try to make a pitch for Malik Willis. I'm not going to sit there saying they shouldn't. I just don't think they're going to win. So then they have to pivot. And then at that point, you get something that gets you to 2027, which is the draft that's going to have more talent, more options at that position. Like you mentioned, CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud is a terrible trade idea this year because there's nothing to go get. But let's just for the sake of argument say he was in the exact scenario he's in now, but it's 2027 and all the quarterbacks are good. Mm-hmm. At least at that point, you could talk yourself into a theory.
Agreed.
You could talk yourself into a theory of maybe they could move off of him and get another quarterback. So that's the problem is you're running into a market or a supply issue. But I think you can get guys that are going to raise the floor more than Kenny Pickett did last year or Joe Flacco, or at least get better out of them if you get better supporting cast around them. But I think there's going to be guys there, and I think the Browns are going to ultimately end up with one of them. Certainly Geno Smith is my preference. But if Malik Willis signs in Arizona, Jacoby Brissett wants to go start somewhere, and obviously he's still under contract, and you'd have to work that out, but I suspect he'd be happy to come to Cleveland. You could go talk to the Giants about Jameis. There are other guys that are interesting out there that you'd be like, okay, I can roll with this. And granted, are you going to the playoffs with Jameis Winston? Probably not, but you're at least going to be interesting. And if you do get weapons around them, he's going to throw him the ball.
200%. And especially with that defense, I feel like Jameis gives you a puncher's chance every time you walk onto the field. He may punch you, he may punch his friend, but either way.
Hey,
somebody's getting hit is all I know, Pete, okay? We know it's going to be a rumble.
He's the anti-Dylan Gabriel. My whole thing with Dylan Gabriel, he doesn't take swings. Jameis is coming out swinging. He's not getting cheated.
All right, how about some good news on the injury front? Quinshon Judkins is out of his boot, and he's starting his rehab process. He's running in a pool, all that jazz. They expect him to be ready for camp. That is a wonderful thing to hear. Obviously, there's a long way to go in the rehab process, but that's at least good news to start off.
Yeah, the idea that he was behind his rehab was made up. There was this suggestion, well, he's still in a walking boot. Yeah, do you know what his foot did? There's a reason he was still in a walking boot. He's fine relative to where he's supposed to be. Are you going to be a little bit nervous about it when week one comes around? Is he going to be right? Is he going to be where he needs to be in terms of being full 100% Quinshon Judkins? That's going to be a real question. But in terms of was he doing anything stupid? Was his foot doing something it wasn't supposed to? No, he's doing just fine. It's just again, what did his foot do? Understand why you'd want to be in a boot for a good long time to make sure.
Yeah, agreed on that. Another, and I mean, this is actually, I haven't talked to you about this. I'm sure there's certain scenarios that you'd be open to it, but you do have your heart on a certain wide receiver at the number 6 pick in the draft. How do you feel about trading down, Pete? And how do you feel about trading down if Makai Lemon's on the board? What's your price? How far do you go? What do you need to get to justify leaving a position where you know you can get the guy that you want?
I love the idea of trading down. It's just all about return and how far you go.
Exactly.
Like, nothing would make me happier than the NFL looking at Makai Lemon going, he's too small, and having him sit there to the middle of the round, and the Browns dropping down a couple spots and doing what they did with Mason Graham. Like, dream scenario. My question has always been, who are they trading up for? And are teams going to be willing to do the thing you really want, which is presumably getting 2027 draft assets? The 2027 draft is set to be stacked.
Yep.
You can sit here and go, well, the quarterbacks could fail again. Okay, that's fine. Left tackle from Texas, Gooseby, is a stud. Would have been a top tackle this year's draft. Went back. He could easily be a top 10 pick next year, top 5 pick. Mm-hmm. You get into Jeremiah Smith. You get into Dylan Stewart, the edge from South Carolina. Like, there's a lot of these guys. The wide receiver class, in terms of the top end talent, is supposed to be higher than this year's class. There's a whole bunch of them. The kid, another Corey Coleman, who transferred from Auburn, never go to Auburn, went to Texas. But he's got all kinds of size and talent. And then the other kid on Texas is really good as well. Mingo or whatever his name is. Yeah. There's a ton of receivers. Like the other Texas A&M kid who's small, but he's also Mario Craver is a stud. But like, there's all kinds of talent that's supposed to coming out next year, and we'll see how it ultimately plays out. But like, it's also in positions that teams genuinely want to be at the top of the draft for. It's at quarterback, it's at tackle, it's at edge, it's at wide receiver, it's at the things where you want to have those top picks. So our team's going to be willing to pay the price. Like, if Dallas is dumb and Dallas wants to trade 2027 draft picks, hey, I'm here for it. Like, but that's my question. Where are we going to get the deal for, and who are they moving up for? Because I know a lot of people like to throw Caleb Downs around, and maybe that's true, but that's always been my worry. So in terms of how far, I don't know that I want to go all that far down, but I guess my thing is, if you trade down and you are still able to get Makai Lemon, your goal. Yeah. If you trade down and suddenly you're talking, now you get like, maybe it's the offensive lineman from Penn State, Vega Ione, or somehow Francis Mauigoa is still sitting there. That's still good, but then the return has to probably be a bigger factor in there if I'm now having to give up what I think is a premier player to get this. Doesn't mean those guys won't be good, just the returns could be in the same way that I said the same thing last year. Trading down from 2 sounds great, but I got to be getting a really good trade to give up Abdul Carter. And Andrew Brady got a huge trade out of it. So, like, if I just use that as sort of the blueprint and say, okay, if Andrew Brady's trading down, he's not going to get cheated, then I'm here for it. And if he can get 2027 draft assets, one, good on him, because that means he's confident. One, he's not playing scared, which I respect. And two, he hopefully will be here to use those picks in the next year's draft. But if they can keep rolling draft picks where they've got 2 a year at the top first round, like, I'm here for it.
Yeah. And, one thing that I thought was pretty interesting that he said was we are coming out of a 3-year window where we had the least amount of draft capital in the NFL. And we're in the middle of a 2-year window where we have among the most draft capital in the NFL. And he said that's going to change how you operate in the offseason and the draft every year. That's going to change how they approach things and how they look at things and everything like that. And, I think, I guess the question I would ask you, Pete, is I'm with you. I don't really see anybody overly worthy of a big trade up, especially like a big move that would use a 2027 first as the catalyst to move up there. Not only do I not see a player worth that, I don't see a team that is willing to punt on that first round for something this year. I just don't see it, which is why I think it's ultimately going to make Ty Simpson suffer. it makes me wonder just how much money Malik Willis is going to get on the open market. Because if you're willing to pay this kid and you need a quarterback that bad, how on earth are you not looking at 2027? Like, it's not ideal, but that should be our year. I mean, it's just every team that needs a quarterback should be doing that.
Well, I think Malik Willis is going to be a really good barometer.
Yeah.
Like if we're talking about if we come back on here after free agency starts and we're like, oh my God, he got that much.
Yeah.
Then that might speak to how bad teams want to win right now, the opportunity they see, and that might inadvertently have some small impact on Ty Simpson, that maybe he goes higher than some people are thinking he will.
Yeah.
Like for me, I haven't done the full deep dive on him, so I haven't formed my finalized opinion on him or anything. But I think Jackson Dart was a better prospect, and Jackson Dart went at the end of the first round last year. I would not be surprised at all if Ty Simpson goes in the top 15.
Yeah.
Top 10 is where I'm going. I don't know if anybody's going to go that route. But if somebody's really desperate, and this is where I simultaneously desperately want Jimmy Haslam to not put stupid pressure on Andrew Berry, because I don't want him to act like one of those teams, but I want Andrew Berry to have all the teams that are basically getting ready to fire their GMs, call them up and swindle them for all they're worth on future assets, because those guys make stupid deals to give up future draft picks because they don't think they're going to be there or don't know that they're going to be there to use them. So, like we saw, who the Jets give up third round pick for that didn't even play. They gave up a third round pick for an edge rusher who didn't even play for him. Like those type of deals.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. This guy from Arizona, wasn't it?
I don't remember. But regardless, when you get into the business of dealing with teams that like feel like they're not going to be there, as opposed to I'm not messing with the Philadelphia Eagles, because Howie Roseman going in nowhere. He has a China-like forecast where he's thinking in terms of 100 years plan, as opposed to I need to be here I'm worried about now. Yeah. So that's where I don't want the Browns to be in that mindset, because it's a really bad way to operate. You make stupid decisions like Hugh Jackson trying to trade a second and third round pick for AJ McCarron.
Yep.
Versus you play from a position of strength. You take good deals when they're there, and you play the board as it sort of falls to you, which is sort of what happened last year. And even though there was sort of pressure on them to perform, and Andrew Berry theoretically could have lost a job, and some would argue should have lost his job, he did it exactly how he should. And I'm hoping he doesn't change a thing in terms of mindset. And at least the comments from the combine suggest he understands that, and he's not going to make those foolish decisions.
Yeah. One thing that I'll say, and I don't know if this is just a, fake it till you make it scenario, or if this is just him being so comfortable in his position in the league. And, it's his sixth or seventh combine as the GM, all this other stuff. He seems very comfortable, Pete. He doesn't strike me as a guy who's on the hot seat. He really doesn't, and it's just like you watch the way he answers his questions and the way he carries himself. And like, you can't help but be impressed with him. He's so well-spoken. He's so thoughtful. And like, I feel like he has an answer and a plan for just about everything they're trying to do. It just ultimately comes down to, can they get lucky with the quarterback position? Because that's basically what it comes down to, man. You just got to get lucky.
As I've said all along, it was true for Kevin Stefanski. It's true for Andrew Berry. They are their own best advocate. The more they talk, the better it works for them, because they are really good at communicating plan. Now, there are ultimately people who go, shut up and show me the wins. And I get it. But like, when you don't, this is why I thought it was a mistake for him not to have a mid-season press conference. When you don't talk, you allow everybody else to fill in the empty space for you and speak for you. And I think it's a misstep on their part. So yeah, I agree. I think he's a good communicator. I think he understands how he needs to operate for this to work. And GM is one of those things you get better at with time for the most part. Unless you're Mike Tannenbaum, you generally get better the more time you have to operate.
So I have a small gripe, and you and I are on the same page with this, but you keep hearing this national thing, and then locally, like the way Mary Kay talks about the quarterback position and Deshaun Watson's spot in the quarterback room kind of infuriates me. Like I was listening this morning, and somebody asked her, "What if the Browns take Ty Simpson? What happens to Shador?" And she says, "Well, I think Ty Simpson immediately jumps Shador, but he'll jump right into a competition with Deshaun." And it's just like, in what scenario is that even on the table? Like you said multiple times, like the Browns aren't in a position where they can tell Deshaun to just go away. So they have to publicly make the appearance of like it's a competition, yada, 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 yada. But I mean, who's going to invest any time or thought into this guy for this team if there's any other options?
Right. Like, one, I've always sort of described what the Browns have with Deshaun Watson currently as sort of a non-aggression pact.
Yeah.
They don't say anything negatively about him, and he doesn't say anything negatively about them. And as long as they, there's no bad blood. But if they were to draft Ty Simpson, every rep Deshaun Watson took would be just criminal.
Yep.
Like the people who are mad about Shador Sanders not getting reps last year, which was preposterous. Imagine every rep Ty Simpson or Shador Sanders doesn't get for Deshaun Watson. He is a novelty at this point. And yes, they can take a look and see what he can do. And maybe there's some lottery ticket chance that he's suddenly going to be a functional quarterback. But I've said all along, he has to reinvent himself completely. There is a lack of understanding that when you have torn 3 ACLs, when you have done your Achilles twice, and you have shoulder surgery like he had to have, the shoulder surgery is sort of secondary, but like everything else is movement. And like, he's not going to be out there and able to run at this point. He has to become a pocket passer. And even before the Achilles injuries, he was not fast. He was not very impressive moving around. He was not seeing the field well. So now he has to effectively become Kirk Cousins or something of that, or late stage Aaron Rodgers.
And Pete, can I interrupt you real quick? Has there been any point in his career, because I know he's had some very high highs, right? Has there ever been a point in his career where he was efficient from the pocket and played on time and in structure?
If he has, it hasn't been since like Clemson.
Yep, exactly. That's saying you're talking about a guy over the age of 30 with his body, for no fault of his own, straight up beat to blank. Like you said, the shoulder, the 3 ACLs, the 2 Achilles. I mean, the NFL has such a small window, right? A thin margin for error. And when you're an elite athlete and you start losing steps, that changes everything about the way you play the game. It just does. That's the trickle-down effect of getting older and losing a step and losing speed and maybe not as much zip on your fastball. All that stuff, man. And he's not only is he dealing with all these physical limitations as he gets older and more beat up, but mentally, he's getting worse being away from the game, and he was already bad. It's just preposterous to me that people talk about it like it's a legitimate possibility.
Well, I mean, think of it from this standpoint. If Deshaun Watson was a free agent and the Browns needed a stopgap quarterback, what would you immediately go to if you're going to sign? If somebody said, should we sign Deshaun Watson, ignoring the whatever off-field or distasteful opinions you have of him, you'd immediately go, oh my God, the amount of injuries he's had.
Yeah.
And like, he's here, and there are people like, let's ignore all the injuries. Maybe he'll be good.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't see it happening. He will go out there. There's a real good chance he will just get hurt again. But even if he doesn't, I don't expect it will be good. More importantly, again, I don't know that the Browns are going to get in the Ty Simpson business, but if they did, if you're seriously telling me that Deshaun Watson is taking reps away from him and then Shador Sanders, it's just a absolute misfire on all accounts. I do not see Todd Monken again. He's talking about 4th and 1 every day. That process does not sound like a guy who's going 4th and 1 every day. That sounds like somebody thinks he's going to be here for a very long time and can waste time. I don't think thinks he can do that. I think they have, and I think the decision on Watson is going to be fast. Yeah. They're going to get out there, see what he can do real quick, and then they're going to make a determination and then move on. And most likely that it's going to be moving on and going somewhere else.
Pete, do we have any idea of when their first organized team activities will be? Are they going to get together at all before free agency?
No, it should be in April, like right around the start of the draft.
Okay.
It should be somewhere in that neighborhood. When we get I haven't got the official schedule yet, but I assume that's going to be the case because that's what it was last year.
Okay. And now I'm under the impression that there's almost no chance that they don't add a veteran. Like they have to, right? I mean, I guess conceivably they don't, but realistically, like there's no way we don't add a vet, right?
I don't see Todd Monken going, yep, this is good. We're fine. Yeah. Like it just, because let's say the Browns love Ty Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
They can't assume that he'll be there at 6. Now he probably would be. He could be there. I think it's far less likely, but there's a world in which he's available at 24. But you can't like go, well, we're going to skip through this whole process and be like, because Ty Simpson's going to be there. And then like say the Rams straight up to 5 and take him as an example. And then you're like, oh, I guess we're boned. Like that's not serious. And it's not how Andrew Berry works. I'm sure it's not how Todd Monken's going to work. So yes, there's going to be a veteran of some sort. Now, how exciting is that veteran going to be? Unclear. Because if it's Tyler Huntley, that's not as much as coaches love Tyler Huntley. And you could do worse in certain respects. That certainly sends its own signal. But if it's a Geno Smith, if it's a Jacoby Brissett, if it's somebody else that signal, like I don't think it'll be him, but let's say it's Daniel Jones, that also sends a very clear message of how they feel.
Yeah, agreed. And you mentioned it earlier about Jameis Winston maybe trying to pry him off of the Giants. And Pete, we talked about it last week. I do have an offseason mock that you get to ridicule later. And you best believe my man Jameis Winston's on there, baby.
Let's go. Team fun.
All right. Well, let's talk about the combine, right? So coming up on Thursday, we got defensive linemen and we've got linebackers. Now,
the Browns are basically like, all right, get to Friday.
So, well, let's focus, these position groups at a time. So D-line and linebackers. Mm-hmm. What are the workouts that are most important for these positions? Like if we had a huge linebacker need and a huge D-line need, where are you looking? Who you looking? What do you want to see from these guys?
Well, for a lot of these guys, or at least for some of them, we just got to get measured first. Obviously, there's some questions with that. But in terms of the workout stuff, look, the most important drill that edge guys are going to do, or most of them won't do, is 3-cone. That's super impactful. But certainly the jumps are useful for measuring explosion, and the 40 is useful for a variety of things, from measuring explosion to just raw speed. And people underestimate the importance of it. And they'll sit there and cherry pick like the 10-yard split. And I would caution people, the 10-yard split is notoriously unreliable. Yes, it's nice to see a good number at the 10-yard split, but like that's variable. If you get a really good start, your 10 is going to look really good. If you get a bad start, it's going to look really bad. It's much harder to sort of mask or get a bad reading on the broad jump, which is the initial explosion. That's what the 10-yard split is going to be. So I'm way more interested in like the broad jump versus the 10-yard split. I'm way more interested in 40 than the 10-yard split.
Okay.
Linebacker stuff. Again, it really just depends. Again, measurements are important. Arm length is important. Their overall, just their overall ballast and width overall is important. Hand size can be helpful for those guys, and defensive linemen. It just helps you secure tackles, get off blocks, all those things. But again, athletically, the 40 is useful. 3-cone's great. And again, explosion. So it's just a question, like those are positions where you need pretty good athletes all over. The biggest thing you're trying to avoid is you don't necessarily need a guy who's super athletic at everything. But what you really want to avoid is getting guys who have real clear deficiencies. So like you're sitting there going, well, I want to get a guy with 4.5 speed. Okay, but if you can get a guy with like 4.65 speed and he's good at the other stuff, like you're going to be fine with that. The thing is just you don't want to get like the guy who's got a terrible 3-cone or a horrible shuttle and then has one really good redeeming quality. You want the overall sort of, as opposed to looking for superstar strength, which is always from a viewership standpoint, everybody watches the 40 and goes, oh my God, this guy ran whatever. Yeah. But really what you're trying to avoid is the massive weakness.
Okay, and that's fair enough. Now, how about and we've talked in previous shows, like Illinois Edge, Gabe Jacques was one that you really liked, but I feel like that dude's getting like low key buzz for like late round one, like mid round two, and we were talking about him around like the fourth when you first brought him up.
I said the greedy second round pick, but yeah, I mean, he's good, and now he's going to get knocked for arm length and some other stuff like that, which is fine. We'll see how he tests. But he's just a really good player, and there are guys that are flashier, but just from a production standpoint, he's outstanding. The guy that I sort of look at as a potential guy I would happily take around round 3 or 4 is a guy like Denai Dennis Sutton, who I don't think is going to have a great 3-cone, but should be pretty good at the other stuff. But he just has really solid production overall, and his tape is pretty good. And he's still sort of figuring some stuff out, but like he's figuring stuff out while being really productive, which is sort of what you want, as opposed to figuring stuff out and not productive, where you're sitting there going, okay, but I'm missing something here. He's at least giving you the stuff you want to see, including block kicks. He blocked, I think, 3 punts just this past year. Now, a couple of those were the NFL doesn't run very many spread punts, and you can see why with what a guy like Denai Dennis Sutton comes right up the middle and just destroys people. But he's just a really good – he's just a good football player. And what's interesting is I saw, like, I think Lance Zierlein's comp for him was like Kingsley Enagbara. Sign me up. Like, that'd be a really nice player to have in the 3rd or 4th round.
Yeah. Okay. How about any linebackers in that range? I know we've touched on Harold Perkins in the past, and he's going to go probably. Well, he's slated to go 2nd round, but I really like Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech. Oh, not Perkins. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say most people are like sleeping on him in the 5th. I'm like, come on down. No, Jacob Rodriguez is obviously really good, and I think for him, like, the testing's going to be basically the cherry on top of the sundae if he performs well.
Yeah.
The one of the guys who was like, I was seeing being ranked in like the 400s, and then now suddenly is the 130 range, 150 range, is the trying to think of his name, the inside linebacker from the Arizona State. He is just incredibly solid run stopping type player. That you just watch Kayshawn Elliott. You just watch him, and he's just really good at doing linebacker things, and he makes a lot of tackles, and he makes a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage, and he's still got to work to get better at the coverage elements. But like, those are the type of guys, especially linebacker. The job, you have one job: make tackles. So like, don't make it more complicated yourself. Get super productive guys, and if you're athletic, great. But like, I'm trying to think, who was the? Let me look. There was a linebacker a couple of years ago who got knocked for missed tackles, and Cedric Gray got knocked for a whole bunch of missed tackles coming out of North Carolina. It was like, okay, yeah, he's also like one of the highest market share tackle guys in the league. So he misses a whole bunch, but he gets to a whole bunch. Yeah. And Cedric Gray is pretty damn good. And he was obtained in round 4. Like, these guys are constantly available, and you can get a lot of value out of those type of players. And it's just by simply getting guys who do the job. Like, linebacker is one of those jobs where, one, outside of the superstar guys, it's correlative for the most part. Your defensive line really informs how good your linebackers are going to be. But other than that, it's like the one thing where you can say you can watch guys and just they do the thing you ask them to do, and like, it translates. And solo tackle production is a really good element for that. And Kayshawn Elliott's a really good example of a guy who just crushes in terms of production, and he doesn't get a whole lot of press, although, like I said, he's getting more love now. But like, this is why, and obviously the Browns took Carson Wentz last year, and he's great. But this is why I always go into these things saying, I don't want to draft linebackers before day 3, because you can always find dudes that are going to be there. Like the latest Trotter brother is in the same boat.
I was just going to ask, the Missouri kid, right?
Josiah Trotter. Yeah. He's 20. He's not yet 21. There's a lot of Leo Chanel in his game, and Leo Chanel's been really good in the NFL. Where you're like, well, he doesn't give you a whole lot against the pass. Okay, yeah, he makes all the tackles going forward, and he's 20. He's not even 21. So like, he'll be okay. So yeah, he may end up in like the late 2nd, early 3rd round, maybe. But like, there's always guys that are sort of in that boat you can find. Like, there's a guy who asked, people asked on the board, Red Murdoch from Buffalo.
Mhm.
Red Murdoch from Buffalo is otherworldly productive. And it's interesting because he went to Buffalo. And last year, there was a guy that like I liked, and a lot of like other people who sort of follow this type of stuff really liked, and Sean Dolak, who was, again, obscenely productive, pretty athletic, and had a lot of buzz sort of as a late round guy. Red Murdoch could be that type of player. I think he may end up going a little bit higher than Dolak did, which is getting drafted at all would be higher. But like, just find guys who do the job at linebacker, and you'll be rewarded for it. Like, I was a TJ Edwards believer, and he goes undrafted. He goes to Philadelphia Eagles, perfect situation, and then ultimately signed a big contract with the Bears. Like
the Bears, yeah.
But like, so to me, the Philadelphia Eagles did it right, and then the Bears did it wrong. Just keep recycling those type of players. They're always available.
All right, so Joe Mannix in the chat brings it up, and it's very pertinent, especially with the recent JOK news. Do you think we're going to re-sign Devin Bush? I mean, I'm sure we're interested. I'm sure we're going to try, but do you ultimately think that deal gets done? And what kind of price do you look for? Because Pro Football Focus has, it's got all their free agent rankings. It's got projected numbers and all that stuff. So I found it interesting. They got him at 12 a year, 3-year deal, 36, 24 guaranteed.
I'm sure Devin Bush's agent likes that. I'm sure Devin Bush.
Yes, he does.
I can't justify it. Like, and he had a great season.
Yeah,
like, he was outstanding. He didn't make the Pro Bowl, but if you're just looking at his numbers, you go, that looks like a Pro Bowl season to me.
Yeah.
But I'm not paying that much. Like, now, what is that really worth? I don't know. But here's the thing. Devin Bush is a perfect example. The Browns got him after he left the Steelers, after the Seahawks went through him, and was picked up for, hey, here's a guy we're going to see if he can become something. And ultimately, he was reasonable, and he got decent enough, and then obviously blossomed this year. I would my as much as I'd like to keep him, and I'd be happy to keep him. My thought process is, if I'm going to, obviously they aren't selling him, but I would sell high rather than buy high, after all this. Like, I'll be curious to see, like, if I'm Devin Bush, I'm going to take the money. If somebody's going to offer me that kind of money, I'm going to take it. But like, if that's not there and it's sort of middling offers, then the Browns might be really interesting, because I've been good there. I know what the system's going to be. They're going to keep it. This was great for me. But Devin Bush would be somebody I'd be worried about signing a big contract and then being a disappointment, not because he can't play, but because the Browns were a great situation for him.
Yeah. Well, and he obviously made some great plays this year. He made some splash plays on interceptions and stuff like that. He's always been a solid blitzer, but like that is steep for an off-ball linebacker, especially steep for an off-ball linebacker. And you're eventually going to have to pay Schlesinger as well.
Right.
It just might not be in the cards. What's going to be interesting about that is, if we don't re-sign Devin Bush, where does linebacker go on the list of needs? Because clearly they believe in enough of a need that they used the 33rd pick on Schlesinger a year ago. So that there's a value there that's maybe a little higher than we would have thought, right? And maybe that's just because Schlesinger was a particular prospect and he hit everything they wanted at the position and everything like that, kind of stars aligning, right? But you have to assume, if we don't re-sign Bush, there's at least going to be another veteran in free agency that we bring in, but maybe even a draft pick in the top 100.
I don't,
or the top 4 rounds. I
don't need another top 100 pick at linebacker.
That's not your choice, buddy.
Look, I would be really interested in re-signing Mahmoud Diabate. The Browns were really happy with what they got out of Buki Watson, and we're really excited about him before he got hurt.
Before the injury, yeah. So was I. He was flashing in the preseason.
Is he going to be a guy that they're like, we've got guys that we're going to roll with and be able to find the production? Is Mascarenas, Easton Mascarenas, going to be a guy that they really like to sort of improve and sort of grow into a role, or do they need to go and get somebody? The one guy I'm sort of keeping my eye on is Caden Ellis. I will be curious to see what happens to him, because is
that the Falcons or the Patriots? Because there's two of them, right?
Falcons free agent. So he's got a connection to Rutenberg. Mm-hmm. But he's 30. and he's not great in pass coverage, but he's really good at the other stuff. And maybe he'll want to go somewhere else that's a contender, but like he may look at Cleveland and go, "This is a great situation for me." If they don't go the Bush route. Now, again, it costs maybe too high. It may not be worth it. But if he's sort of like an underrated asset that like teams are sort of not really eager to pay, and the Browns can get him on the lower end of the spectrum, then great. That's the type of player they should go get. But like ultimately for me, I think Devin Bush gave you the best season potentially he's ever going to give you.
Yeah.
So that's another reason where I'm cautious about saying, yeah, let's pay him more, because I think it would be really difficult for him to repeat what he just had.
Yeah. And justify and live up to the contract for sure.
Yeah. We're just consistently living in a world where we're like, yeah, he had this great season. And now we're sitting here going, why did we pay him for this?
Now let's go back to the defensive line. I don't necessarily foresee if a prospect who is just too good to pass up falls to a certain point, then obviously, but I don't see a ton of room to add a draft pick at D tackle or defensive end. Personally, I mean, I feel like they're pretty well stocked up right there.
There's always an opportunity, and one, they've got to decide what they want to do with the pending free agent
Cam Thomas.
Yes, who I really like. Now, I would re-sign him. He's a really good fourth rusher. He's exactly what I think you should get. But if for whatever reason Cam Thomas is like, I don't like the offer they're giving me, I want to see what's out there. I thought I played reasonably well.
Yeah.
And like the Browns don't get it done and, sign a Sam Kamara or something, and they go in the draft and a great opportunity sitting there. And now you're sitting there going, let's say Dennis Sutton is now my fourth edge rusher, or, my scenario of like Harold Perkins, where you're sitting there going, man, it's a great opportunity. You can take it. Now, defensive tackle, I think, is way more wide open. Billy Collins is coming off a major injury. You don't know when he's going to be available. Mike Hall should be healthy, but we've got to see it. Shelby Harris is a free agent. I would love to have him back. He can play for me forever, but he may be happy to go to Atlanta because he really like Kevin Stefanski. He might want to go play for a team that's going to help him win. I don't know. Maybe he's a guy who doesn't want to move. He's got a lot of kids. That being said, so other than that, you've got Mason Graham and Aiden Huntington. So like there's easily room if you're to add another guy. So again, I will look at the Falcons again and go, is David Onyemata, who's 33, a guy that maybe somebody makes sense to fill in that gap? Or do the Browns want to go into the draft and see if there's a great opportunity there? Because you just can't have too many of these guys. And there are some really interesting guys who fit sort of the mold the Browns like in terms of the undersized athletic type that's going to be, one gap penetrator. Or there's a couple big, there's some bigger guys that can be more suited, even though the Browns are going to typically be one gap. They may want some more beef up front because there are times where they just get shoved off the ball because they have so many of these smaller guys. They may want to add a different element to that. Obviously, they showed interest in like a guy like Deion Walker last year, who ultimately ended up in Buffalo, was pretty good. Is that something where like they want to revisit that possibility? There are a couple guys now. One of them who is really good fit, but has notable off-field issues is Xavier Harris from Ole Miss. I don't think the Browns should go after that, given what what some of the things he's been charged with. But he's 6'8", listed 6'8", 330. Looks a lot like Deion Walker, and they played one gap. Yeah. He just gets off the ball and he goes and causes problems. So I think anything defensive line is an opportunity.
That's a mountain.
We'll see what he actually measures. But yes, he's a giant man, as was Deion Walker. Yeah. You just sit there and you go in the draft, you go, great opportunity, take it. That's sort of the deal. And, obviously I'm still bummed that the Browns got traded Juwan Briggs because he was really well suited for it. Had a good season.
That still surprises me,
Yeah, well, my guess, if I had to guess, Andrew Bray went to the coaching staff and said, we're getting calls on this guy. Do we need to keep him and potentially get rid of Shelby Harris? Or, and he basically picked Shelby Harris. Now, I don't know that for sure, but it just seems like the most logical situation for that. Yeah. And Shelby Harris is certainly valuable. But, yeah, Juwan Briggs, that one hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a surprising one. All right. Well, let's shuffle over to Friday. Friday, you're going to see the DBs and the tight ends, and we're clearly going to be interested in the tight ends. Measurements will be big for these guys. Anything on the field that will move the needle at all for a tight end, or is it kind of typical stuff, 3-cone, 40, that sort of deal?
I actually like the blocking drills, like in terms of the on-field stuff for the tight ends. Just it's how do they create power? Yeah. Is sort of interesting, and those things, the drills they do are good at sort of forcing them to try to, who are the guys who have the natural ability to engage the lower body and drive the dummy up or whatever, and get movement that way. Because there are times you can see guys who understand how to do it and they make it look easy, and there are guys who just get stuck. And those are things that are interesting to evaluate. But like tight end is one of those positions where it has the most weird historical outliers entirely on athleticism. Whereas production matters for so many other things. There have been enough tight ends, and some of this is because of guys who didn't play football.
Yeah,
and then
like
came in and played
players that transition.
Yeah. When you got Antonio Gates in the Hall of Fame and his production in college was zero.
Yeah, Jimmy Graham too. And
that's the thing. But that is a position that allows supreme athletes to like work.
Blossom. Yeah.
Now the hit rate is challenging on that, but nevertheless, so like you have to take notice if somebody tests incredibly well. There was the kid who went to the Jets in the 7th round that people really, Zach Kuntz or whatever, was this type of guy who was just a crazy athlete. Now it hasn't manifested into anything in the NFL, but you sort of like you sit there and you go, I get it.
Yeah.
Freaky tester and all these other things. So at least it's worth a flyer. So that stuff's really interesting. And obviously, look, the guys who haven't measured, height and arm length is important because that's going to be, and weight, and relative to whether they can actually play in line.
Especially really ground specific, because that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for necessarily the most athletic pass catcher. We want a guy that's going to play on the line.
If you have to think of this in terms of, I want to put a guy in line. How is he going to do across from Myles Garrett or Alex Wright or Isaiah McGuire or the guys they're going to face who have those one are 260 plus or 270 pounds plus, or Garrett, God only knows, and have like in case of Garrett has 35-inch arms. If you are like 6'3" and you've got 31-inch arms, that's going to be really tough to do. And you're just asking to get sort of drilled. So that stuff matters. How are you going to, do you have the necessary tools to sort of be able to survive and be a competitor on that level? And if you get lucky, like one of the reasons Charlie Kolar makes so much sense is he's a guy who's capable of competing with defensive ends and being able to reach and seal and do those things to like really help you in the running game and give you a huge advantage while also being an eligible receiver that occasionally catches the football. So that's where you sort of look at the situation and you go, I got to get guys who meet certain parameters, relatively speaking. Now, again, if there's a guy who's just so good, I get it. And we can have that conversation because a guy like, to me, Justin Jolly from North Carolina State is really, really good. He is redundant, but there's a point where I have to say, okay, I've got to take him. But I'm certainly more interested in the Sam Roush's of the world. I'm curious to see what Dallin Bentley from Utah does athletically. Those type of guys. Even Daquan Wright is really intriguing because he's got some weirdly specifically high numbers in certain areas, even though the overall package is a little bit flawed.
Right. That's Ole Miss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So you sit there and you if he tests really well and obviously talk to the kid and you get a feel for him, that could be a nice little late round option for you.
So Pete, let me ask you something. How realistic is it for the Browns to look? I understand that he was 20 years old. He's turning 21 sooner. He just turned 21. Harold Fannon's not a big guy. He's about 6'2", 240, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, isn't that almost like just a complete misfit as an inline tight end?
Yes, he is not an inline tight end at all.
Yeah. So it's I feel like the team genuinely needs a starting level tight end. I mean, we're all kind of like looking at Harold Fannin like he's the future of the position. I think he is the future of our pass catchers. I don't think he's our future tight end. I think he's a versatile weapon that we move around. He's a chess piece. I wouldn't pigeonhole him as strictly a tight end because if he's playing on the line, I don't think it's a strength.
No, it's like obviously there's a lofty. Not trying to compare the player, but like Travis Kelce's not putting his hand in the dirt and trying to block a whole lot of people. He's out there to go catch balls, and that's why he's going to end up in Canton.
Yeah.
Like Harold Fannin can be great at that, and there are ways he can block, set up the appropriate angles, get him on the move. Like there are ways he can do it, and he's got to get better at it. But ultimately, if you are trying to say we are going to own the line of scrimmage and this is how we're going to do it, you need those bigger guys. But like he's a weapon. But that to me, you can theoretically do this, or you get a couple of those guys. But this is why I think that niche is filled. Go get a real inline tight end, and go get somebody who can another slot weapon who offers something different. And the example I like to use is Detroit. Sam Laporta is in the mold of Harold Fannin. He's that F. He's a really good space player, move tight end. They can get open and do all these different things. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is a slot receiver, and they do very different things, and they cause a different set of problems. Both guys can help in the run game in certain respects in terms of the matchups, but like that's the dynamic you want to create. Give different types of athletes as opposed to trying to get two Harold Fannins, as tempting as that sounds. It also sort of limits what you can do with them.
Yeah, for sure. Pivoting off of tight ends and going to DBs, since that's the talk on Friday. So I think we both agree that there's depth needed, right? Preferably a little bit of length if they're not going to re-sign Emerson. Maybe a slot to come in and push Harden a little bit. What guys? Let me. Okay, I'm going to ask you two questions. Number one, give me a couple of defensive backs that if they fall to a certain spot in the first 3 rounds, you're going to have to really, really think about it. And then give me a couple guys that are going to be available on day 3 that you are intrigued by as well.
Just a corner or both?
Both. Doesn't matter. I mean,
safety's going to be the biggest wild card of the whole offseason on defense.
Okay. I've got an individual name to ask you about that, but keep going ahead.
So as far as corners go, if a guy like Keith Abney fell to like round 3, I'd be really intrigued. I don't think he will. Yeah. But like he's the guy where you sit there and go, man, that guy has bronze written all over him, because I think he checks the box on arm length. And the Browns, Brandon Lynch, who's now been promoted to DB's coach, had basically come out and said on multiple occasions, 33 inches. We want guys with 33-inch arms if we can get them. Doesn't mean that's all they have, but that's the number. Yeah. But he is exactly that type of guy. He's physical, makes plays on the ball. He does a whole lot of interesting things. I am curious to see what a guy like Chris Johnson is able to do in terms of the testing. He's been more of a zone corner, but like that's why I want to see the testing stuff, because he's built like a guy you'd happily. And look, the reason I mentioned that is because Martin Emerson, I wrote him off because I was like, I love the way he plays the game, but he's zone corner. And then boom, they picked him. So that's why I'm not trying to do that. And the other guy that if you're trying to go in the Martin Emerson bucket or guys like that, who again plays a lot of zone, but is just a dude on the field, it's Dalen Everett from Georgia, who's just really, really good. So those are the guys that I sit there and go, top 3 rounds are really interesting. Once you get past that for corner, one of the guys that unfortunately missed basically all season with injury, and I don't know what his status is for the combine or anything else. I'm really intrigued by Xavier Scott from Illinois as a power slot guy who plays sort of like Witherspoon. Okay. Played at the same school. If you go back to his tape last year, he's an angry young man, which is always I always love that at DBs. He just made a ton of plays, but almost this entire season got wiped out this year. So it's like this mystery. One, where is he health wise? And two, where is he going to be sort of slotted? But he's just really intriguing because that was sort of like something where I sat there and went, woo, that guy's really good.
What was the injury?
I don't remember. I think it was something like a quad or something.
Okay.
Julian Neal from Arkansas. I've seen him all over the place in terms of where people have him going. Listed, he's legitimately almost 6'2", over 200 pounds. He's pressed, but he sort of understands how to steer guys and doesn't try to, knock them out. He just sort of like wants to get hands on and sort of figure out where he needs to go. He's pretty good in terms of production. And like, again, if he falls, Davison Igbinosun has an outstanding profile. Now I think he's going to go super high. We'll see. There's some other guys that I'd like to see. It really just depends what you call Jalen Kilgore as a big slot. To me, he's intriguing. His production is really good. I think he's still raw in certain elements, angles, and some other things. But man, he's a big kid. 21. Yeah, he's
How
a big
about because we have some mutual friends, so you might already know this name. But how about Genesis Smith from Arizona?
Yeah, he's good. In terms of the numbers, he's got a really strong profile. He's got good tackle, and it's interesting because there's the same conversation is being had about Genesis Smith as was had with Cedric Gray. He misses a lot of tackles.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. He also makes a lot of tackles. Now, his tackling form is awful, and there are times where he looks like he's pleading with the ball carrier to go down. It is not pretty. Part of it is because he plays so fast and he's out of control.
Yeah.
But he covers a ton of ground. He's long. He can get all over the place on the field, and he's willing to come downhill and at least get involved. Now you got to spend a ton of time teaching this kid how to tackle and get more invested in that part of it. But man, he's really interesting. He's 21 years old. He's a true junior coming out. So there's a lot to like about him. But yeah, he's another guy, really good production profile.
Where's he slotting? Where is he looking like he's likely to go? I mean, obviously it's so early and you never know, but
well, I mean, like most of the time I see him in the third round area. So, maybe that would be, for the people who are bitter about Xavier Watts, that might be like the neighborhood that he would go in. Now, the thing is, like, this is the position that is most interesting for me to watch in the offseason, because you've got a guy in Mike Rutenberg who's coming into this defense who just came from a place where he had Jesse Bates, who was an all-pro.
Yeah.
He was spoiled in having that. Now, it makes all the sense in the world for the Browns to re-sign Ronnie Hickman because he's
restricted anyway. Yeah.
It's not going to cost him anything. But, like, that's the one where I sit there and go, if an opportunity comes up, I could see things getting very strange. Now, that immediately goes, for a lot of people, that goes, well, that's why Caleb Downs is in the picture. I just don't know. I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying if you watch him at Ohio State, that's not really what he did. He's way more in the box, downhill, making plays at the line of scrimmage. Now, maybe he can do it all, but just going off of what we've seen and what his data suggests, what he's actually done suggests strong safety or slot as opposed to free safety. But the guy where I sit there and go, man, I could see the Browns getting frisky at like 39 if he's still sitting there would be Dylan Thieneman from Oregon.
Oregon, really?
Because he is a ball hawk.
Yeah.
If you go back to him at Purdue, all he did was make plays on the football. And if they see sort of that element, they may sit there and go, that's really interesting. AJ Halsey is sort of really interesting. I'll be really curious to see how he tests because he's a weird build because he's big. Like or at least he's listed 6 foot 222. Like that's a big free safety.
Linebacker. Jesus.
Yeah. Like, and he played deep. He was the deep safety for them. So like that may be a little bit sketchy. And like at that point, everything's gonna be about what's your 3-cone because and your shuttle, because everything about that's gonna be changing direction. Like I know a lot of people are gonna sit there and go, well, he's got to have really good straight line speed. Not really. It's really about change of direction for those guys and being able to make the quick adjustment and make a play on the ball. But like that's where I sit there and go, Dylan Thieneman's sort of this wild card element where I sit there and go, man, I could see the Browns if they're going to do something weird in terms of defense, I could see that dude being a guy where they go where everybody's going. They took who, and he's that guy.
That makes sense.
He's
And
21.
Going back to
listed 6', 205. We'll see what he actually is, but just all kinds of production.
Yeah, and I would love throwing a guy like that into our defense as is, because you could kind of platoon him early and just let him float when he needs to float. Let him be that deep third when he needs to be that deep third.
Well, that's my theory. That's my theory of the case with Genesis Smith.
Yeah,
like because of Ronnie Hickman.
You have flexibility.
I'm okay with taking what amounts to be half a player right now, if that's what you think Genesis Smith is, where he's only going to play on passing downs.
Yeah, and you got a year to round him into shape.
Right. And if you basically have a race, can one of you guys come out and find a way to win the job? Which is really interesting. There's another guy in the mad scientist world where I sit there and go, man, it'd be really interesting if the Browns were to mess around with this. And I don't know if he's even interested, but Hezekiah Massis from Cal is a phenomenal zone corner who reads really, really well and is click and go and all these other things. But he's small. He's like 180 pounds. And I sit there and go, man, how this kid could be really fun if you just put him at free safety on passing down. Just go get the football, because you're really good at it. But how realistic is that? I don't know. That's where it's really difficult to sort of project those things. But if the Browns were to do it, that'd be really intriguing.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right. Well, the exciting day is going to be on Saturday, because you're going to have your quarterback workouts, your running back workouts, and your wide receiver workouts. Now, no Jordan Tyson. He's not going to work out, and no Fernando Mendoza. What's that?
That's not helpful.
No, it's not helpful at all. Not at all. But Jalen plays for the Cavs, so it's let's just ignore it and bring him in, and it'll be a happy family anyway, right?
You know what they should do? They should just bring Jalen Tyson in to do his workout. Because he's apparently still recovering. But he's still trying to get back from the hamstring injuries, which, that should be a blaring, flashing light for people who are like, man, I really like to take him. And I get it. He's really good. But there's a whole lot of people who cannot stand when Cedric Tillman is out. He's a third-round pick, and you don't want to do the same thing with Jordan Tyson.
Yep. Well, not for nothing, and I think people look past this all the time. Jordan Tyson is not going to get a break until next offseason. Jordan Tyson is going to be training his you-know-what's off for the draft, and then he's immediately going into OTAs and mini camps and training camp, and then the season. If he's already nursing a soft tissue injury, this is going to linger. This could be potentially very, very problematic for his first year. So I was already nervous about it, but now that he's not working out because his soft tissue injury is still an issue, that scares the hell out of me, man. And he is a goddamn rock star, Pete.
He's really good. He's really good.
He is so smooth. It's crazy.
Because you're going to sit there and you're going to have somebody go, well, they can just rest him for however long. And then you're like, okay, but how much of training camp are you going to be okay with this dude missing because you're trying to get him right? It's just not realistic to me. If he somehow falls a crazy distance and you're like, wow, 39, how can I not? Okay, fine. Risk meet reward, but 6, cannot do it. I cannot do it.
Agreed completely with that. So we got good news on Quidshot, right? So obviously, I'm a Raheem Sanders guy. I like what he brought at the end of the year when he got his opportunity. He ran hard, he ran tough, he ran physical. And I really like Dylan Sampson. So it's I don't see us drafting another running back. Even if a good one drops to the right, I don't know if it's necessary.
I would look at free agency if I was going to add another running back. I'll steal from Jack because I really liked him coming out of BYU. If Tyler Algier is there for a reasonable deal, I'd be perfectly happy with that. But I'm more than happy to say I really want to see what more Raheem Sanders can do with blocking.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly not going to blame the Browns if they want to bring in another guy and just to make sure, if for no other reason they don't want to, put more stress on Quinshon Judkins, or if he's out for whatever reason, because they are being cautious, that you aren't just running Sampson and Sanders into the ground, you get another body in there. So, like, I would be more inclined to look in the undrafted market if I'm talking draft guys, but free agency makes more sense. Now, what free agents are going to be really intrigued by that option is going to be its own question. So, like, Tyler Algier may look at this as an example and say, I don't really love the situation for me there. But like, he would be a guy that makes a ton of sense. Again, I don't know how much he talks to Mike Rutenberg, but like, nevertheless, there is that connection.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now, we talked a little bit of Ty Simpson. I think we both agree that Mendoza's a pretty damn good prospect. We both like Mendoza, but a lot of chatter about a day 3 quarterback being added. There's even people. I'm even hearing rumblings about people talking about in the 3rd round if Drew Aller is sitting there. I can't get on board with that personally. I was very, very much a fan of Drew Aller going into last year's playoffs. I thought with that profile and that physicality, if this kid puts together a strong playoff run, he's going to be the number 2 pick in the draft, and we're going to get him. You could have written that in stone if that kid played well. But the fact that he played as poorly as he did, came back, did not look any different as a player, and now he's going through this injury. I can't do it. I get it. 6'6", 230 pounds, athletic, strong arm. I get all that, man. I don't see enough of a player, and I haven't at all. It's crazy to me.
Well, he's going to work out, so we'll see if that looks good. But there's nowhere to put him.
Yeah.
And like, not only is there nowhere to put him, but like, you are literally asking people to sit there and be okay with not playing this guy. He is nowhere near ready. Like, he wasn't ready for Penn State last year. Like, how is
he's less ready than Shedeur was? Like, it's not good.
So like, somehow, some way, there needs to be like some isolation booth you can put him in that's away from the team or whatever, that like away from fans and that stuff, that basically we need to see this kid play. You do not. He needs to stay away for several years. Like, the best case scenario for Drew Aller is to go to like Buffalo or Green Bay or one of these teams that has an established quarterback, Kansas City, and just toil away for a couple of years and try to get better at being a quarterback, and then ultimately go there. Go and potentially like be more than that. But like, the Browns are not that team right now. And I certainly don't want to give up another 3rd round pick in this case, if that's what the going for. I don't want to give up a day 3 pick for a guy that I don't think is going to be here in any meaningful capacity. They have taken 2 swings at quarterback. Work with those guys. If you want to bring in another undrafted free agent, great. But if you're going to bring in a veteran, at that point, we are talking 4 quarterbacks, and the new guy would be number 5. And that's even if you believe that the Browns are going to trade Dillon Gabriel, which I don't think is a foregone conclusion, then you still are at 4. So what are you doing at that point? Like, are you just carrying them and saying, okay, we're good with this? Because again, they are not content to just lose football games. They're not content to tank away the season. So they are going to try to be serious. So at some point, are you going to be, how many people are going to be okay with, hey, we drafted Drew Aller, but we're also getting rid of Shedeur Sanders and get Dillon Gabriel to do it? And I suspect the people who are a fan of that idea were predisposed to dislike Shedeur in the first place, and predisposed to like Drew Aller in the first place. So, and that the people are going to be mad are the exact inverse. Like, I just don't see the value in that when I can get what is hopefully going to be another lineman or a tight end or something that can hopefully contribute to my football team for now and in the future, as opposed to planting a seed and hoping it works out. Since even if you take Drew Aller, is that going to stop you from being super active if you really like the 27 class? No, and it shouldn't. So
it's essentially lighting a draft pick on fire, because Drew Aller is not going to have an opportunity to claim the job next year. He's going to be redshirted until 2027, and that's the year you need to find a quarterback anyway. So like, is that when he's going to get his shot?
Are we going to have a 3-way competition between Drew Aller, Shedeur Sanders, and Jaden Maiava next year? Like, it's just, come on.
Yeah, no, I agree completely with that. I have a really hard time. I don't necessarily love a mid to late round quarterback selection anyway. I feel like those picks are. I don't know. A quarterback's hard enough to find somebody in the later rounds as an even, smaller needle in a bigger haystack. It's just crazy to me. I almost feel like it's, just lighting a pick on fire. And, you go back to a year ago, people are still pissed. There's people pissed that we took 2 running backs, let alone the 2 quarterbacks. There's people that point to pick 94 where we took Gabriel. You could have had a lineman there, the 4th rounder where we took Sampson. You could have had a lineman there, right. So it's like taking another quarterback is just completely pointless to me.
I cannot wait for Dylan Sampson to have some blocking. I cannot wait.
Yep.
I was super high on that kid last year, and I was so happy when the Browns got him in round 4. So it's one of the things I cannot wait to see if they can get some blocking, that kid's going to sort of be unleashed. But yeah, look, I don't have a problem with taking swings at quarterback. I advocated for that taking swings last year, but you took them.
Yeah.
Now you got to see what they're going to do, because I don't see the value in saying, okay, we took these swings and we've decided that both Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel suck, and we're moving on. Like, that to me seems kind of productive. If you just took one, okay, but you took 2.
Yep.
Let's see where they're going to go.
Yeah. And I mean, not just that. You can't look. Quarterback is a position that doesn't take a couple years. It takes years and years and years, as we've seen recently. Like, even a guy like Baker was immediately pretty good for rookie standards. He was pretty good, right? Did all that stuff. But if you look at the player he is now mentally, it's night and day. Quarterbacks get so much better. And if you're going to take a rookie and you're going to give him 5 games as a rookie to base whether or not he has a future, then you made your mind up before you even made the pick. Like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, that was just what my thought process was at the time. Which is why I don't like forcing rookies onto the field, because when they don't play well, a huge amount of people will just immediately write them off. Now, we've got the inverse problem of people like ignoring entirely what they saw in the field. And one of them is going to somehow become a superstar. Like, there's a middle ground, which I wish more people would get on, which is like, okay, Shedeur Sanders did some interesting things. Let's see what he can do with it. But also I have to be smart and cover my bases and plan for what if he can't get better. I need to have
the numbers don't lie, Pete. The numbers are the numbers. Like, you can paint whatever picture you want to paint. I'm a fan of Shedeur. I wanted to see him last year. I wanted him way earlier than we got him. All that stuff. But you have to be objective when you see that. Yeah, like, he showed flashes, but those flashes, like, it was like 1 flash play and then 10 shitty plays. Like, you gotta be a little more consistent if you're going to be a high level starter and you're going to win. Look, everybody wants to point to the 3-4 record. But, like, the defense scored more touchdowns than the offense did. Like, I can appreciate that, as a quarter wins or a quarterback stat. Look, I get all that, but, we got to pump the brakes on exactly what Shedeur did. But the one thing that I will say, and I will die on this mountain, to me, he's young enough and he's talented enough and he has enough of an elite trait in his accuracy that he is worth giving 2026 to. And the reason I say that is that I don't see a young quarterback that's going to be attainable for us that is exponentially better than Shedeur that I want to give up the assets to see it. I just don't. I mean, Mendoza is that guy in this class. Like, I see Mendoza. Anybody else? I like Ty Simpson. He's probably a better prospect than Shedeur. But I'm not like, oh, man, yeah, I'll use my first round on that to upgrade that when he's only got 15 career starts and he's not exactly an elite athlete. He doesn't exactly have an elite arm. He's not an overly big kid. I look around and I've got our boy Emory Hunt backing me up. Emory Hunt doesn't see a single quarterback in this class equal to Shedeur, Pete. I'm just saying. I don't think it's outlandish or crazy for us to give Shedeur 2026. We all have eyes on 2027, and it's boom or bust, right? Either he's the guy or he's going to get us the guy.
I love Emory, as I've always told him. He's the hardest working man in this industry by far.
Yes, sir.
I don't agree with this analysis on other things, but he is not afraid. He is not afraid to have his opinion, and I respect him for it because I know he does the work. But look, if you want to give Shedeur Sanders 2026, okay. But if does Todd Monken, I don't think he does, because
Well,
Todd
yeah.
Monken wants to be here in 2027.
He's
And I
going to
don't
be
think-
here, Pete. He's
and I
going to
don't
be
think-
here.
And
He's
I
going to
don't
be
think he can
here.
guarantee
It's
that.
going to be a $100 million maneuver for Jimmy Haslam to fire Todd Monken and hire another coach. And that doesn't even include what he would have to pay Barry and a new GM, or what he would have to pay the rest of that coaching staff. You're looking at $100 million. Ain't going to happen. They're safe, dude.
They say that, and they say it, but they got rid of Stefanski very early in his extension. So, I mean,
And they're still paying him.
Yes, they are.
Like, I can appreciate that Jimmy has allowed Andrew to take a blowtorch to so much of his finances. But I feel like this next offseason, I think they're safe. I really do.
I hope for their sake they are.
Yeah.
I'm bringing in another quarterback to make sure. And again, my whole thing is if Shedeur can beat him out, great. Then that means something to me. But if he can't, that also tells me something.
Well, and I think we're on the same page with that. It's just you want Geno Smith, and I want to trade for Jameis.
Well, I mean, but either way,
it's the same.
That's a professional quarterback benchmark he's passing. Like I would like I don't know what it would cost, probably more than I'd like to give up, but I would love Jacoby back as well. But yeah, Geno Smith is easily the
I
trade.
agree. I'm a big fan of Jacoby. I like Jacoby quite a bit. Let me ask you this. Oh, go ahead. What were you
you're good. You're good.
Well, I was just gonna say, now I'm assuming that the Browns are gonna go full competition, yada yada yada. But me personally, I would trade for Jameis, or I would trade for or sign Geno, or trade for or sign Jacoby Brissett, and I would say, hey, we're going to give Shedeur the first crack at this thing. But you are my safety net, and I expect you to win ball games when we call upon you. And I feel like that's the best thing we could do, because those guys aren't going to need every single rep. Shedeur needs every single rep. I don't want my starter bouncing in and out of the lineup and having a different guy with a different delivery and a different throwing style and a different amount of RPMs on there. Like, I just give this kid a true, legitimate shot at being the starter. And I mean, you don't necessarily have to give him the full season. You know, if he struggles to the point where it's detrimental to everybody else, hell yeah, pull him. Get him out of there.
I don't have a problem with you manipulating the reps.
Yeah.
But I would absolutely say it's a competition. You guys are both fighting for it. I would not hedge it and go, well, we kind of want Shedeur to win. Like, absolutely. Yeah. I would just say, look, he needs more reps than you, but you're going until we decide who the starter is, but you are absolutely in this thing.
Yeah.
If it's Geno Smith, if it's Jacoby Brissett, if it's Jameis Winston, I don't care. I'm not telling them.
Even in the event that we trade them, where we trade for them, and they're, it's not like we're wooing a free agent. We're, telling them they're going to be a part of the competition,
But I want to have a look, man. Like, especially Andrew Berry talks about this all the time. He wants competition. He wants competition in every room all the time. Don't try to tell me that Shedeur Sanders should get special treatment in terms of how he's viewed relative to the depth chart. Again, I don't have a problem if you're saying we're going to give Shedeur 6 reps and the other QB 4. Like, I don't have out of 10. Like, I don't have a problem with that, but it should be a real – you're just saying you guys are both fighting for this thing. We'll see what happens. And until we make that decision, this is how we're going to split up reps. We think Shedeur needs more reps than you. But if you win the job, we're giving it to you, period.
But, I mean, that's the thing, though, Pete. I understand that, and I get that from a locker room standpoint. You want things to be, competition-driven. You want fairness and all that other stuff. But it's not necessarily that Shedeur is getting whatever. It's the quarterback that is getting the extra special attention. This isn't a typical position. And you also have a guy who's 24 years old. He's in his second year, competing against guys that are been in the league for, over 10 seasons, that have everything under the sun already implanted in their brain. Like, it's not necessarily a fair competition, because these guys are already at a certain level, but it's a position strictly for the future, right? Like, we know Jameis can come in and be better day one. Same thing with Geno, same thing with Jacoby. But if we can get Shedeur to close that gap by the end of the season, isn't that what we want? Like, isn't that ultimately the best thing for both the team and the player?
But I'm still not going to change how I message it. I'm going to message it to them that way, because I'm going to message it to every other position group that way. And I want them to understand. I want Myles Garrett to understand. I want Denzel Ward to understand. I want Mason Graham to understand that these guys are fighting for the job. We're not slanting this in terms of again, you can change reps how you want to sort of give Shedeur a little bit more, but not in terms of saying, well, Shedeur's kind of the guy and you're the safety net. No, you are saying these guys, you are fighting for a job in the same way that everybody other position group is fighting for a job. Because I think if you change it and make it special, that's going to have not necessarily like a problematic effect, but I don't like the message it sends to the rest of the locker room.
Well, I don't, not to push back, but I mean, the quarterback position is different, and the locker room understands that. The quarterback position is all about reps. It's all about comfortability. You want to be comfortable with your offensive line. You want to be comfortable with your receivers. And I'm not saying it's impossible for a quarterback to attain this stuff without getting all the reps, but it's like we already know that the vets are going to be better day one. We already know that, So dropping them in a competition, like you almost have to grade them on curves. You can't grade them the same way.
Because we know what the locker room wants. They want to win.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like Myles Garrett doesn't even pretend. He just said, man, they asked these guys at like the various Super Bowl stuff and the Pro Bowl stuff. And like they basically served it up and like to endorse him. And they're like, no one would do it. And you can say that's being politically correct and sort of getting around it. But like, nobody was sitting there going, yeah, Shedeur's that guy. Like, they want to win football games. Myles Garrett will come out and say, even when the coaching changes happen, his answer like, I want success. I want success. Yeah. So I don't think he's going to be interested in hearing about, well, we kind of really want Shedeur to figure this thing out. It would be, you can make a case that's different, and maybe to a certain point you can get some concession on that. But they're not talking about a guy they took in the top of the first round. You're not talking about a guy in the second round. You're taking a guy with minimal investment, and he's got to go out and win it. Like, he's had games to play. And granted, it's not a huge sample size, but for a fifth-round pick, it is a substantial sample size. So he's got to go in there and seize this thing. It cannot be a situation where we're sitting there going, well, we've got to wait for Shedeur to figure this out over the course of 4 weeks of training camp, and hopefully he's going to close the gap. Like, no, I mean, if that's the case, then Geno Smith or whoever it is should be the starter. And then if he can close the gap over the course of the season, he can win the job. But Jimmy Haslam has now said on 2 different occasions, they need to win more football games. Yeah. So like, that's the other part. You can't just be like, well, we kind of want this kid to sort of figure it out. They don't have time.
I mean, yeah, but that's the thing though, Pete. This is where I'm going to give you pushback, because they do have time. They have a new head coach. He's got a 5-year deal. And that's a lot of money. And don't get me wrong, I know that it's not impossible, right? But I don't believe that Jimmy Haslam made these moves this offseason and is like, okay, everybody's on the hot seat. Everybody better deliver this year. We better get this many wins. We better get that many wins. And I get what you're saying about the players wanting to win, but the players they're not dumb. They know that Jameis Winston, Geno Smith, and Jacoby Brissett aren't ultimately the quarterbacks that they want. And while they might take them from a 4-win team to an 8-win team this year, that doesn't necessarily do them any good given the 2027 draft on the horizon. I don't necessarily need one of these veterans eking out extra wins that maybe the team shouldn't have because we're giving up on Shedeur early. Like, I'm serious, dude. I am ready to ride Shedeur straight into the ground if that's what it is, or into the position long term. And don't get me wrong, I want to trade for Jameis. I want to raise the floor of this team. But I'm also not just going to make it an open competition with some 30-year-old that has no future on the team.
Yeah, I can't get there. That's my whole thing is I'm trying to as you said, raise the floor. The best way to do that is to make it an even competition. I'm raising the floor.
I get that. I get that. I guess ultimately, I think the disconnect here is that I don't look at Shedeur like he's a minimal investment 5th-round pick. I look at Shedeur as found money, okay? Yeah, we got him in the 5th round, but that doesn't mean I need to treat him like a 5th-rounder. He plays the most important position on the field.
Don't play like a 5th-rounder, because that's what we've got so far. Don't play like a 5th-rounder. But
that's the thing, though, Pete, and this is what like gets me about the discourse about Shedeur and what he did last year. What are we measuring him up against, right? Because Dillon was more efficient. He's got better numbers. but
They're like
the
39th
offense
and
did
40th
nothing.
at PFF rating.
Well, yeah, right. And then you look at Flacco. Flacco looked miserable in that offense a year ago with those weapons and that line and everything like that. So I'm certainly not trying to justify, oh, Shedeur was actually way better if you look at it through this. No, he was bad. But who was going to be good in that offense in that scenario?
You'd have a better argument if he did not look as so god awful against the Bengals in the final game.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but also
he had a game-winning drive and all that stuff, but like
but
everything else,
he had no Fannin. He had no Winston.
It looked it was Rams preseason bad there for stretches.
Yeah. Who is he playing with in the Rams preseason game?
That's part of the problem for him is he just left. The moment of winning and doing what he did to come up with a win is great. Like I'm absolutely happy for him on that until they fired the head coach, and then I was very angry about it.
Yeah,
but
nevertheless, what the hell were we doing?
Yes, neverthelheless, like Cincinnati's defense is not good. You're sitting there going, man, just give me something to go out on. And yes, you can sit there and well, he won the game. I get it. But you had 2 defensive touchdowns and you won 20-18.
Well, and I think the worst one was the week before because he played well early on against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he started out really well against Steelers. Like if you flop those 2 games, I think it would be a little bit better. Cincinnati was genuinely bad. A terrible game to go leave the season on.
I mean, of course, but like also look at the circumstances. Look at the situation. Like that's like, don't get me wrong. Yeah, he played bad because he was a rookie in the worst offense in football in the last game of the year. I'm just saying, I don't think we're reinventing the wheel by like not being surprised he was bad in that last game. My bigger issue was the week before against Pittsburgh when he threw that god-awful interception that should have cost them the game. Even Dion, I never seen a father like this in the press box before. It was rough.
I'm reminded of that interception in my immediate thought process. Clutch. It's tough. It's just I want nothing would be better than for him to come in to training camp and suddenly look really better right off the rip, or OTAs or whatever. You're sitting there going, okay, the pace is a little bit different. The way he's processing is a little bit different. Like it's got to be more than
out and grabs it, right? Just grabs the
But then that's fine. Then that's a real conversation. But I can't have a situation where like, well, him and Jameis are going around, and Jameis looks great, and Shedeur still kind of looks like he's having issues with some of the stuff, and he's taking sacks in 7-on-7. Like,
yeah,
it's tough. So we'll see. But I cannot give him the season.
Well, just before we move on to Sunday and the offensive lineman here, I don't want to give him the season. I want to give him the starting job to start. I'm giving him September. I'm giving him training camp in September to put a stamp on things and get things moving in the right direction. If I don't see it at that point, then Jameis Winston's my call. And then you go the rest of the year. You give him 4 games in the first month of the season to show he's going to protect the football, he's going to play on time, and he's going to make plays. And if he's not going to do that, then you get him out of there. Like you said, he's only a 5th-round pick. There's nothing that's going to sink anything about this organization if Shedeur does not work. But I want to give him every single chance to make it happen. I like the kid. I like his makeup. I like him. I think he can play.
It's also interesting that you're not even giving Dillon Gabriel a shot here. Gabriel could legitimately be better than him this year.
In what aspect?
Like he could just come out and be a better quarterback than
he's going to throw the ball downfield, and he's not.
I have no idea.
I have no idea. You understand that we're talking about like homeless man's Tua Tagovailoa, so I think the bar is so low for me.
I think he's going to turn into reasonably costed Garrett Nussmeier.
That's reasonable. And look, I joke about Gabriel and the hate on Gabriel and stuff like that.
Really terrible, but like. That's the other part is like in the same way that people are like, not everybody, but some people are assuming rapid growth from Shedeur. Like there's nothing stopping from Dylan Gabriel from looking significantly better than he did last year, because I maintain that if Shedeur was the one who went in first and then Dylan Gabriel finished up the season, it would probably be played out the same way, where Shedeur was god awful and then Dylan Gabriel came in and looked a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. My issues with Gabriel were, I mean, your issues were more that he never went downfield. My issue with Gabriel is anytime he tried something, he looked like he physically wasn't quite capable.
He looked terrified.
You know? Yeah. And like that's that's the one thing that, like, you know, I don't see him eating a Super Mario Brothers mushroom and just getting superpowers this offseason. It's just not going to happen. He's still going to be undersized. He still isn't going to have a strong enough arm and not a good enough athlete.
He is from Hawaii. You know? We'll see.
we will see. You never know. We never know. All right, well, let's go. O-line. O-line on Sunday. Now.
Oh, baby. This is it. This is the event.
This is a big one. And this, obviously, it's going to be a phenomenal day of drills. Excitement, you know, whistle to whistle. But I'm under the impression just about everybody's working out. The only two notable skips I was able to find were Mendoza and Jordan Tyson. So everybody's going to measure, everybody's going to work out, all that good stuff. Now, for you, for the Browns, who are your top three offensive linemen? Like the guys that, whether they're, you know, whether it's 6 or 24, these are the guys that you have the most interest in. What position?
Well, I'll just do it from 6 and 24. Okay. I mean, 6, it's the two. It's Maui Noah and Fano, and we've got to figure out if Maui Noah can really be a tackle. We'll hopefully elucidate some of that information at the combine. Mm-hmm. I hope they do all the testing. They won't, and I will be incredibly bitter when nobody does the 3-cone or the shuttle. But nevertheless, but once you get past there, like for 24, I'm very intrigued to see what Monroe Freeling does. Mm-hmm. I'm incredibly interested to see what Max Sahanachor does, and Caleb Lomu, because all of them are athletic in different ways, and should do well. But from what are these guys actually going to measure, other than Hanachor? We already got an idea with him, the Senior Bowl. The other two have not. And then how do they perform in this stuff? It's going to be really interesting. And for a guy like Lomu, like, am I going to see any progress in how he bends? Because that's my biggest hang up with him, is he plays super tall. Yeah. And I'm curious to see if he can sort of address that. Whereas Monroe Freeling is very flexible. He has some other issues to sort of work out and figure out in his play. And then Hanachor hasn't played a ton of football, but he looks pretty good for a guy who hasn't played a ton of football, and he looks really athletic. And is he going to suddenly put himself in a position where, like, I'm sitting here going, I can't wait, I got to take him at 24. You know, that's sort of the thing with those guys. And I'll be curious, particularly with guys like those three, because if they're good at them, they have every incentive to do every test, because they have the potential to suddenly skyrocket higher than other. Because there are people who think Monroe Freeling's like a 3rd-round pick guy. But if he tests really, really well, not only is he going to go to the first, but he could go higher in the first. And Hanachor could put himself squarely in the first round. And Caleb Lomu Freeling could theoretically have the Armand Membu rise, where suddenly you're talking about them as the second tackle off the board or something like that. So there's a lot at stake for those guys. And the other part about this is, like, for every other position, we get production data. They either make tackles, make plays on the ball, or they catch balls, run it, score touchdowns, all that stuff. You don't get that with linemen. There's no prescribed metric that you can sort of read into in getting meaningful production. So it's all about tape and then the measurements, how tall, how long your arms are and all that stuff, your actual weight, and then how do you move with it? Like, how explosive are you? All those things. Broad jump is huge for these guys. Vertical, and the 3-cone and the shuttle give you flexibility and quickness. Like, those things are super important. And then the 40-yard dash is like, it's weird because in some ways the 40-yard dash is more important for the bigger guys than anybody, because of what it ultimately measures. No, you're not going to have a whole bunch of linemen running down the field, but it's a really good way to sort of measure your overall ability to get off the ball. Like DeJuan Jones, it crushed the 40 relative to his weight. So like that's something to keep an eye on. Like Joe Thomas was not great at the agility stuff, but he's really fast, and it really helped him in terms of being a good pass protector. And he had short arms and all this other stuff, but he's tall.
Okay. So let's go Caleb Lomu, right? And Monroe Freeling. I feel like those guys have potential to really shoot up draft boards because I feel like those are like the two natural left tackles of the, higher rated guys. And obviously both sides are equally important because the league's going to have two pass rushers. They've been moving guys to face the right tackle for years, and the league's had to respond to it. So right tackle is almost just as important, but left tackle still is, just a little bit above. Do you think those two guys, which of those two? Because I would lean towards Monroe Freeling because he's got the size to really grow into a really big, powerful, good tackle. And Lomu seems a little limited, right? Like early, like low 300s.
Well, the thing is, like, Caleb Lomu runs like a tight end. Like he is really athletic. He looks like a power forward, which has its benefits. Like you can see it on the field. He is fast. Yeah. His feet are outstanding in getting to pass protection and this stuff. He's really good at that stuff. Monroe Freeling, he's not as polished. He's got a lot of work to do, but I like the way he comes off the ball as a run blocker. I like the way he bends. Like when it comes to linemen, yes, there's certainly the technique and all the stuff you need to get out of those guys. But I'm really interested in like the physical elements that you need to be successful. Can you bend? Do you have answers for how to deal with certain things or the capabilities to have answers for these type of things? And like some of this you're going to have to establish in the interviews. Are these like smart guys that really want to learn and get better at this stuff, or are they just sort of coasting on athletic ability and their God-given ability to get them this far, and then whatever happens? Are they essentially like, not that there's anything wrong with this because the NFL is full of guys like this. They're basically shift workers. The NFL is my job. I show up, I do my thing, and then I go home. Yep. Or versus a guy who's like, this is all I want to do. I want to do this as long as possible. And particularly for offensive line, it's a little bit, I won't say it's more important, but it's important to get guys who like really want to do this because it's not fun. Or a lot of the elements are not fun. Like, yes, winning and all the
that's the best example of it. I'm taking Jed Wills over Tristan Wirfs.
Well, I mean, it was just like you're at a position where people just most of the time are telling you you're awful.
Yeah.
Or you're bad at your job. Like, I think the Browns fan base is typically pretty good about being, positive about good linemen, but like still there's still people who like this year who like thought Joe Bitonio wasn't good. And he was still really good. So it's like
you only notice linemen when something bad happens.
Well, or when they're really good and you can tell.
No, of course.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. But that's the thing. Like you have to be able to do that. Like Will Campbell, I give him a ton of credit, basically being like playing through the knee injury and all this stuff. And when it came to, and he didn't do the initial press conference or the post game, and he's like, I didn't want to say anything I'd regret. So he came back and like did the next day. He's like, listen, man,
smart kid.
I get it. I'm being paid all this. I was drafted this high. I'm getting paid this much money. That comes with expectations, and I didn't fulfill them. Like, good on that kid, because like there are a lot of people who just internalize all that stuff, and can't and have a tough time with it. So like, you got to find the right people to play offensive line, and those are the things they're going to have to figure out in interviews and stuff. But yeah, a lot of it comes down to taste. So like Caleb Lomu is a really good example because there are people who just will marvel at what he can do with his feet and his speed and stuff like that. But like I'm not down on Lomu by any stretch, but just off my initial look at some of these guys, I just like the way that Freeling sort of plays tackle and the stuff that he can do. So I'm really curious to see what does that look like when we get to the workouts. Am I going to sit there and go, man, Caleb Lomu is just so athletic, I don't know how you don't pick him, or am I going to sit there and go, yeah, man, Monroe Freeling does all the things I need. He's more than athletic enough. He doesn't have that glaring weakness that I would worry about. And I'm like, he's just a stable, good offensive tackle. And for me, I want, like, you can get away with it, particularly if you have a right-handed offense. You can get away with having a left tackle that just does just basically nothing in pass protection, and you're fine. But I would really like to have a guy where you can go, oh man, I can run block. He can run block and do all those other things, because that gives you just such an extra benefit that, like, hey, we can go both sides of the line. We feel good about it and do all these things and still be really solid in pass protection.
All right. Well, what do you think, Pete? You think last 10 minutes, you ready for the mock off season? 1.0 pre-combine? Yeah. You ready for this?
Yep.
Well, all right, let's start with who we're going to re-sign, right? Now, in this iteration, because, I mean, we're going to make this a weekly practice just because I love it, and I know you love it so much. So my first maneuver, I'm going to re-sign Devin Bush, and I'm going to follow all the Pro Football Focus stuff. 3 years, 36 mil, 24 guaranteed, just because I know that would make you happy too. So we're going to start with that one. I'm bringing back Joel Bitonio. So Pro Football Focus has him on a 1 year, $4.5 million deal, but I'm going to go ahead and pay the Cleveland tax on that. I think it's going to be a little more than that to get Joel back. So I'm going to go 1 year, $10 million. I've got Tevin Jenkins coming back.
Exactly the number I had in mind.
Yeah. I got Tevin Jenkins coming back on a 1 year, $3.75 million. Pro Football Focus says 2.75, but I know to pay the tax. So we'll get him back here on a 3.75. And then I want to bring back Shelby Harris too. I really like Shelby Harris. I like what he brings to the room. I think he's still, even at his age, I think he's still kicking ass on Sundays.
He's good. He's good. Yeah. He continues to be good.
He's a good player. That's just all there is to it. Now, free agency. Well, I'll start things off. I am trading pick 147 to the Giants for Jameis Winston and pick 185. That's my first move to stabilize the quarterback room. And also,
I respect it.
That move is as much for Jerry Jeudy as it is Shedeur Sanders, as it is for the rest of the offense right there. I think Jameis across the board will elevate this offense from an emotional standpoint, from a football standpoint. What's that?
Also why I think you have to have a very even competition, because those guys cannot be squandered.
Yes. All right. So I'm signing 2 offensive linemen. My first one, I'm signing Braxton Jones to a 2 year, $15 million deal. They had him as a 1 year, $5 million projection. So I've got 2 years, $15 million to bring him in as the left tackle and set the floor for that left tackle position. I'm bringing in Cade Mays from Carolina at center for a 2 year, $10 million deal. Okay, again, I don't think he's exponentially better than Luke Whippler, but I think he's better than Luke Whippler enough that it'll at least be a healthy competition. And maybe we'll draft somebody. We will see. I'm bringing in 2 tight ends, Pete. I'm bringing in Charlie Kolar from Baltimore, and I'm bringing in our boy Daniel Bellinger from New York. Okay. Kolar they have as a 2.75. Bellinger is like a 1 year, $2 million
I
deal.
So if they sign Kolar, it'll be a multi-year deal. But yeah, go ahead.
Who, Kolar? Well, I've got him as 2 years, $6 million. I've got Bellinger 2 years, $5 million, just whatever. I'm bringing in Roger McCreary from the Rams as a nickel to push Harden and, maybe get a little bit out of that position. And that's going to do it for me for free agency. And now we go to the draft. Now, I got to tell you, the more I think about it, the more I think that Mekhi Lemon going 5th overall to the New York Giants is the best move that they could make. Because I think that would, A, help ease Malik Neighbors coming back and being the number 1. And B, everything we love that he would do for us, he would do for New York. I honestly, and I know it pisses you off because you know I'm right. And if you were New York, you would pull that same damn trigger.
Awesome.
Yeah, he is. He's very, very good. So at 6th overall, I've got him taking Carnell Tate. Because like we've talked about, I mean, I want offensive tackle in the worst way, but a number 1 wide receiver is usually only attainable up around where we're drafting. I think I like Carnell Tate. He's coming from an Ohio State wide receiver factory. These guys come out pro ready. They come out professionals already. They know how to study. They know how to do all that stuff. So I think that's a easy peasy one right there. I'm going Maxi Hanachor at 24. and a lot of people have him in the second round. I think he's a phenomenal athlete. He's got a lot of punch. I'm a big fan of that kid. I think we're going to be lucky to get him at 24 when all is said and done.
Perhaps.
My second round pick at 39 is going to be Chase Basantis from Texas A&M.
Okay.
My third round pick is going to be Connor Liu from Auburn because I know he's hurt, but I've got Cade Mays in there and I've got Luke Whippler, so we don't have to rush him back. And hopefully we have a top 50 caliber center going into next year, if not earlier. And then my fourth round pick, which was the last, is where I ended this mock.
Sure.
Sam Rush, tight end from Stanford.
Well, that last pick's a home run. But the whole thing with Connor Liu is he's really good. It's entirely how do your team doctors feel about him? Because look, I completely understand the idea behind this. And I remember there was one year where the 49ers with Trent Baalke took a defensive end from Florida State. They went in on they had a really good roster because that was when they had Kaepernick and they had Harbaugh and they were really good. And they were like, cool, we've got all these picks, so we're going to take these guys. They took Tank Carradine in the second round. And there was a guard from Clemson they took in round 3. Neither one ever did anything. And you forget about these guys. But and you just remember the guys that it worked. But the track record on that is weird because it's difficult enough for a rookie to make it in the NFL healthy. Then you add in another element of, also in this case, an ACL recovery. Mm-hmm. It's difficult. So I get very nervous about that. And I'm not a doctor and I can't evaluate these things. But having said that, Connor Liu is a very good football player. Yeah. I'm very curious to see if the Browns are really interested in drafting guard early. And it's just based on some of the stuff that Andrew Berry's saying, just based on what seems to be supply. Yeah. I'm curious if they really want to do that. Now, I have no problem with it because they don't really have much at guard. In fact, they have more at tackle relative to just roster numbers. But yeah, that's going to be really interesting. Now, Chase Basantis, I'll be one of the guys I'm very curious to see how he tests. I know he has a very loud and rabid fan base, which includes one Michael Keefe. How's he going to test? How's he going to look? Because he could be a really rock solid guy that you get for 2 contracts. And that would be exactly what you want with that pick. I love Hanachor, and that's genuinely, I'm curious to see if that's going to be a conversation we have to have.
Well, let me go back because you just said about how they view guard and how they would measure the importance of guard in a draft scenario. I mean, if you look at Andrew Berry,
he's great interior guy.
Of his ears, for the guard position since he's been here. Petonio's been on a big contract. He extended Wyatt Teller, all that stuff. So I think if a player who's worthy of the slot is there, I think they'll pull the trigger.
It's less about would he be willing to take guard and more about how much is he focused on scarcity at tackle. Now, ultimately, he's going to play the board, and which is why ultimately what I'm saying is sort of irrelevant because he's shown, especially with this last year, and he said it himself, and I believe him 100%. He had no idea that they were going to end up with the draft they ended up with when they went into it, and probably would have laughed at it ahead of time if he's like, we ended up with this. Yeah. But so ultimately, if guard is the best pick for him, I get it. But just from if he could draw it up scenario, and you can't, but if he could, to come away with number 1 wide receiver and 2 tackles would probably be his dream. But you got to play it as it is. And particularly if we see a Hanachor, Monroe Freeling, and Caleb Bloom who all go in sort of that middle to late first round, and the Browns are like, man, we got a Hanachor, great. And then but we don't really want to take the kid from Northwestern, or we don't want to flip one of these guys.
I was going to ask you about Caleb Tiernan. I don't have much of a problem with Caleb Tiernan. I like that. He's tough. I think he's solid. He might be a little limited in pass pro, but I think he's tough.
But either way, unless you come to that, because if they do, then okay, then they're going to be like, okay, then we're going to take a tackle. But if that scenario plays out, they're like, man, we really love these guards, and we really want to take one. And it's not Emmanuel Pregnon because he's a 6-year senior, and I'm not interested. Yeah. But if it's Chase Basantis, if it's somebody else in that, or then okay, that makes a ton of sense. So and that's the other part that sort of feeds into the Connor Lew thing. And do the Browns feel okay with the idea of taking somebody who's not going to be available for some amount of time? Yeah. And the other thing I forgot to mention with the injury thing, and I will use the example of Jonathan Brooks, because I really like Jonathan Brooks coming out of Texas as a running back. It's like, man, this kid's electric. And he had the ACL tear. And he came back for Carolina, and he immediately tore another one. And you're just like, oh, my God. And, like, it's over.
It's over.
So, like –
There's no more counting on him for anything.
So, like, that's what scares the crap out of you is, like, you know, Quinshon Judkins was scary enough. And that's his first real injury. But, like, you get one of these guys – who's just coming off injury, like, man, this is great. We got him at a value and all this stuff. And then they get hurt again, like a similar thing or another big injury. And all of a sudden you're like, it feels like we've wasted the pick and we are just gutted. And that's the other part where I get very nervous about the prospect of taking guys with pre-existing injuries, because it's just a very risky situation. Now, an
ACL is a tough one, man. That really is. It's a lot. That makes sense.
So we'll see. I mean, maybe they're super positive about his prognosis, and they're like, he's going to be back. He's going to be ready for training camp. There's going to be no issue. And then, like, great. But these are the things I don't have a good answer on. And, like, you never do. You just sort of like, well, they picked a guy who had the thing going, and when are we going to get back? I mean, we just found out today, and Perry wasn't even sure that Luke Whippler had surgery or not.
Yeah.
But he's like, yeah, he'll be on time. And then I ask him, did he have surgery? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right, though, you know, because there's enough stacked against these rookies in their first year in the NFL that rehabbing an injury on top of trying to learn everything all at once, it's a tall task. And it's a recipe for disaster for the long-term future of the guys. So, Well, either way, Pete, wonderful show as usual. Appreciate you guys in the chat, all 375 sticking with us. We appreciate it so much. We appreciate the OBR streaming network for having us. OBR.com, guys. This is the best time of year for it. Be sure to check it out. All the articles, the insider forums, Fred Greetham, Lade Atkins, Pete Smith, all the hard-hitting stuff. They got boots on the ground in Berea. Now is the time. It's definitely worth it. And, man, always good. We'll see you boys next Tuesday. We'll have a whole lot more Combine stuff to talk about. And remember, this weekend at the Combine is when all the moving and shaking starts, dude. It's when all the talk happens and all the trades get set up and all that stuff. So be glued. There's going to be tons of stuff this weekend, and we will catch you guys next week. Pete, always a pleasure, brother. Take it easy, guys.